Normally for Fishermania we bake by the lake on the sun-drenched banks. But like the rest of the country, the weather here in South Yorkshire has been rather treacherous. But the show will go on, for these are no fair-weather fishermen. Well, over 2,000 anglers up and down the country have tried to get here to Hayfield Lakes this afternoon, and others have travelled hundreds of miles and not been able to get a ticket for any of the qualifiers. We are down to the final 16 in Fishermania 14, the grand final, live and exclusive here from Hayfield Lakes in Doncaster, South Yorkshire, for the next 5 hours or so. Well, some of the fishermen have been here all week preparing themselves for the day of their lives. You go to Wembley Stadium, and this is the fishing equivalent of Wembley. You get the Wembley suit. If you come to South Yorkshire, you get the FishOMania suit. They'll be backed by friends, family, and thousands around the lakeside as well. Normally, Keith and I have a lakeside view, but this afternoon, as the weather is so inclement outside, we've come inside to the Hayfield. Yep, welcome to our local. We're inside the pub this afternoon for Fishermania. We'll be bringing you the best live and exclusive fishing on television. We always, on Sky Sports, have the best analysts as well. Andy Gray when it comes to football, and of course Ian Botham and David Gow when it comes to cricket. We have the Mr. Big of fishing. In fact, he's so big this week, he was described by his doctor as obese.
Thank you for that.
Keith Arthur.
Yeah, cheers, Rob. I've got to say, it's great to be here again, isn't it? It's just fantastic.
It's a wonderful day, and traditionally, we're baking in sunshine outside in the heat of the summer. Today, it's like a winter's day. It's miserable, it's rainy. How different is the fishing going to be?
Well, I think we'll cheer it up because the fishing's likely to be very good. I've got a very good feeling about today. The conditions are better for fishing than brilliant sunshine. We've got a decent ripple on the lake. It's overcast. It's not too hot. Oxygen levels will be good. I think it's going to be a real cracker.
Does it make it more competitive, the fact that the weather is grey and overcast and not so rainy as well?
The fish won't be so inclined to go into the shade of the trees, up against the rush beds, where we've seen them the last couple of years. They could well be in the open water enjoying the influx of oxygen that they've had. I think it will be a very, very open match.
Well, it promises to be an absolutely fantastic afternoon here in South Yorkshire. There's no second prize, there's no third prize, it's winner takes all this afternoon. £25,000 to the winner of Fishermania. Some of them have said they're going to share a bit with their wives and their daughters and their sons. One or two are going to share it with other anglers as well, but there will be one winner of £25,000. The biggest fish of the day will bring in £2,500. The ladies' challenge has a prize of £1,000. The juniors have some quite useful pocket money of £500, and the celebrity team winners will be taking away some crystal glasses to have their champagne in later on this afternoon. Or maybe the most important part of Fishermania before the fishermen get their rods in the water, so to speak, is the peg positions, where they're drawn on the lake this afternoon. This is so important, Keith, isn't it? Where they're going to be. To the layman, to the person out there that knows nothing about fishing, explain what a peg position is and how important it's going to be.
Everybody draws a number. The numbers are put alongside a part of the lake, and that's the area of the lake they have to fish. They've got to fish on the platform where the peg is, and they fish in front of them to halfway across. They're not allowed to fish beyond halfway across the lake. Some pegs are more favoured than others because they've got a bit of room. You can see 13's got plenty of room, 4, 12 goes into a corner, 1, 5, 16 corner pegs. But you look at peg 8, it's got an aerator in the middle to aim at. So they're the pegs that people really want.
Well, the way it works is that we have a weigh-in every half an hour, and then they culminate all of the weights during the course of the afternoon, and then the man with the biggest bag of fish added up throughout the whole afternoon takes away the £25,000. We've got 60 new competitors. None of the guys were here last year, but Steve Jackson's been around before. He's one of 3 former winners. He won in 2001. There he is. The nerves will be jangling. His microphone's up so we can talk to him later. Give us a wave, Steve. Yeah, he can hear us as well. What will the guys be going through now? What do they say in sport, don't they? Preparing to fail is...
Failing to prepare.
Preparing to prepare. Exactly. I hadn't written that one down. I failed to prepare. What will they be doing to prepare for this?
They're all ready now. Most of them have been here for a fortnight. They've made their rigs. They've got their poles. Elastics are all tensioned. The drags on their reels are set. The baits are prepared. Everything's ready. All they want now is for that all in to sound.
Well, so to speak, the lads are waiting to get their tackle out for the afternoon. It's almost 7 minutes past 12. We're ready for the start of FishOMania 14. Let's join our MC, John McDonald.
Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to Hayfield Lakes for the partypoker.com FishOMania 14. Brought to you by Matchroom Sport and live here on Sky Sports. It's time to get the action underway. Anglers, it's all in!
Well, it's like the first bowl of a test match, or the first whistle in an FA Cup final, or the first drive in the Open, or the first punch of a World Championship boxing match. They've been waiting all morning. Some of these anglers have been here since almost the crack of dawn. A lot of camaraderie amongst themselves and the teams behind them as well. They have coaches, they have people behind them. And Keith, what will be going through their minds? They'll be nervous, won't they?
What they're doing now is laying the table. You'll see they're all putting feed in different ways, some in cups on the end of their pole. Steve Cook's putting some out in a feeder. He said that he's going to put in the most ground bait you've ever seen go through a feeder in the first 10 minutes. The pole cup there on the end of their pole, they can put it exactly where they're going to fish. They'll line it up with an object, maybe another peg or something that's permanent. They'll lower that in, and as they lower it in, they can drop their rig exactly and on top of it, so they're feeding a very precise area. Some of them will feed 2 or 3 different spots.
So they'll have been there for a while, studying where the fish are congregating, and then they'll stick the bait in there, so to speak, and then they'll go for that one particular spot.
Yeah, they'll use a plummet. If they're pole fishing, like you'll see, they'll be to fish on the bottom. They'll be using a plummet to find exactly the depth. And for example, if you can find a high spot on the bottom, that's likely to be hard, a good area where fish will feed. So you look to exploit every little nuance of the bottom that your plummet indicates. A couple of anglers have drawn pegs they really fancy. I know Steve Jackson felt very strongly about peg 1, felt he had a great chance. Neil McKinnon on peg 5 wanted the cover of the big willow tree on his right hand side, and Phil Ringer has got the aerator to cast to. Mark Jones on peg 11, former champion in 2005, would prefer to be back in his old haunts, but there he is on a peg that has been runner-up before, and Clive Wright drew the peg that everybody wanted on peg 16.
Well, let's go down to, I believe we're going to peg 5. Neil McKinnon, who had the first fish of the afternoon. And he's been prolific early on.
That's a very big fish, and I would guess he's foul hooked it. The way it's swimming away, he's probably hooked it in the tail. You'll get fish milling about over the bait, giving you full signs on the bite. You lift into them, and they just hurtle away at dramatic speed. And that fish is really taking him for a ride.
Remember, £25,000, winner takes all. Neil McKinnon took part in the Park Ding Masters not so long ago. Almost took the £25,000, but he lost a very big fish at the end of the competition. So he's obviously determined that he's going to make a good start this afternoon.
He's getting his big fish in early.
This carp is a little shy. It's its big moment to get on television here on FishOMania.
Neil would rather it wasn't. Neil wants a couple of giver-uppers to start with.
Well, he's always been a good starter. He was the first man to qualify, wasn't he?
Yeah,
he won that viaduct in Somerset with a bag of 67 kilos.
Way back in April. This is how long these guys have been waiting for their big day. Way back in April.
It was sunny back then as well. We had a baking hot April. Here we are in the midst of summer, in rainy, miserable conditions in South Yorkshire. But it's not concerning Neil McKinnon, who's travelled up here from Gloucester and has made an excellent start.
Now that could be a much bigger fish hooked in the right place. The way it rolled there on the surface, it looks like it could be not what I expected. There it is. It's a very good fish hooked in the mouth. big mirror carp.
Well, remember, the way that we work this afternoon, it's whoever has had the biggest catch culminating over the whole day. We have a weigh-in every half an hour, and that is really going to bend the scales, isn't it?
I would say that's not far short of 3 kilos. It could be just over 3 kilos. That's a fantastic start.
When it comes to the biggest fish of the day, we have a prize of £2,500 for the biggest single fish of the day. What would normally win it here?
It's normally a fish of approaching 5 kilos. I don't think that's quite that big. It might not fall. Look at it. It's an obese fish.
An obese fish.
And he's caught it on a bit of worm. You could just see the worm being blown up the line by the fish.
What you don't want to do is have fish fingers or slippery fingers and lose the fish just as you're about to
now,
put the fish into the net.
Anglers very rarely touch the bigger fish. It's unhook the fish with a disgorger, which is a device just to take the hook out nice and clearly, and then lower the fish into the net, transfer it straight from the net into the keep net. Chris Downs there with another. That's an excellent fish as well. The big fish has started early.
Well, it's been a great start to Fishermania. The pictures there of Chris Downs on peg 7, also with a decent sized fish to start off as well. There's Steve Jackson. We have to be careful what we say about him because I know that he can hear every word at the moment, but he'll be blocking us out. Intense concentration for Steve, who won it back in 2001, became the joint favourite last night when the draw was made. It's a little like the boxing. Everybody has a nickname here. He's known to his friends and fans, of course, as Wacko Jacko. Well, alongside him is Steve Denmead on peg 2. He's an underdog. He's come a long way from Somerset this week. He says he's had a disadvantage because he's not had a chance to practice. But evidently, Keith, that doesn't matter.
Well, Steve Denmead has come with a very, very fixed game plan. He's got 2 waggler rods, a bucket of 8mm pellets, and he's going to fish like that. He's going to be catapulting out pellets all the time, making a rattle on the water, casting into them, looking for fish to come up in the water. He's already had a couple of fish, so his plan's working brilliantly so far.
Over on peg 12, Steve Hemingway, who's an England international. If he wins, he's promised to share the money, well, part of it anyway, with Will Rayson, good friend of his, who's 2 pegs away on peg 14.
Although it's early days, this will be a bonus fish for Steve because he'll be looking to catch his fish in the corner, and he's caught this one casting straight out in front on the feeder, and Will Rayson has adopted exactly the same policy. They've started on the feeder. There's a fish in the net for Steve. Well, lovely common carp, that.
Absolutely, the fishing has been fantastic in the opening 20 minutes or so of Fishermania. Well, over on peg 1, the winner in 2001, Steve Jackson, whose life is fishing. He's a tackle wholesaler. The joint favourite is living up to that reputation. What's his tactics, Keith?
Well, I noticed he started fishing straight out in front shallow on the pole. He may have gone into the corner already. His plan was to try and catch a couple of fish in open water to give this corner peg a chance to sort of mature, if you like, put some bait in, wait for the fish to get really confident before he attacked them. As you can see, this is a serious fish, and Jacko's giving it everything. You can see there he's actually drawing the elastic from the end of his pole to increase the tension on the fish. It's a new technique that anglers are adopting now. You see there he's got it in his hand. He's got what's called a pull bung. It comes out the end of the pole and reduces the length of elastic and therefore increases a little bit the pressure on the fish.
Well, he describes himself as fat, unfit, and funny. At the moment, he's a picture of concentration. Fish in the net at last. And the applause behind him. We're less than 5 minutes away from the first weigh-in of the afternoon. A look of relief on the face of Steve Jackson, who is going to be somewhere on that leaderboard. Now, one of the corner pegs wasn't that fancied. Clive Wright's on peg 16, his first ever Fishermania. He actually won in his first ever qualifier, and he's enjoying the event. Look at that, Keith. That's a whopper.
That's a ghost carp. They fight a bit harder than the others as well. So you get a bit twitchy. And again, when I popped down on Thursday, Clive Wright was practicing on peg 16, so he must have known something. He was fishing straight out in front of them with the waggler. He's caught that fishing a bomb. He's ledgering on the bottom, a bait firmly on the bottom. Looks like a reasonably long hook length, and he'll be just scattering bait over the top of that, because he will, like Steve Jackson, have put some bait in that corner, resting it, hoping for a shoal to move in, so he can exploit that later on.
Well, he'll be rather happy with that, because any second now we're going to have our first half hourly weigh-in. We have them every 30 minutes. And the sound you hear signifies that whatever's in the bag is going to be weighed any second now, just as the fishermen prepare their fish. And I know we shouldn't mention scales to Keith after his meeting with the doctor this week. But they're preparing, they're getting everything right. We've come back into the studio. We're not lakeside this year, by the way. We're inside the pub. We've had a makeshift studio because of the rather inclement weather outside. And Keith and Tommy Pickering have joined us in the studio. We'll speak to Tommy, the former world champion, in a moment. But let's get down there and get a flavour of what's happening as we prepare for the weigh-in. We go down to Dickie Davis.
Thanks ever so much, Rob. John, if you can bring the net out for us. Brian, we're ready for the weigh-in. If you can bring it up for us, guys. Keep coming, Brian. Keep coming. Keep coming. That's great. If you can bring it in. I thought you were going to follow it in there for a minute, Brian.
I thought I was going to win then, yeah.
It's been a good start for Neil McKinnon. He's done really well so far. There's a couple of big ones in there, at least 6 or 7 we saw him pull. Let's see how much the weight comes in at. Thanks, Brian. Barry, if you give us a shout once you're happy with the weight. They're bouncing around in there.
890. 6 kilo 890.
6 kilos 890. Good first half hour for Neil McKinnon. Bryn, how are you getting on over there?
Well, we're with Steve Jackson's bag here, and that's come from peg 1, and there's a decent sized fish in there. We're going to do 2 here because we've got the potential big fish as well. An early candidate potentially for that. Let's have a look what we've got.
Total weight is 3 kilos 630 grams.
3 kilos 630 grams is the bag weight. We'll just have a quick check. If we take the 2 little ones out quickly, we might be able to do biggest fish weigh as well here. So an early contender potentially for that. You'll see that fish in there, and that's the one that we're going to get quickly back onto the scales. Here we go. It's a big fish one. There's a little perch stuck in the bottom there. There's fish flopping around all over the place here just at the moment. Here we go. We're ready, chaps. Big fish is the next one we're weighing here. And we have for that
3 kilos 380 grams.
3 kilos 380 grams. So there, that could be an early contender for big fish. Jackie, over to you.
Bryn, thank you. Just the one fish over on my pegs, but it's a big one. Well, we think it is. It's a carp, and it's in the keep nets of Clive Wright. Off you go, Keith. Go down there and take the fish out. So the steward's going to take the fish out of the net now. We didn't struggle with it, but he certainly had it on the line for quite a long time, quite a lot of patience there. But it was worth the wait. Good fish. So here it comes.
Yeah, I've got it here, Mick. Neil McKinnon, 6 kilos, 950. 6 kilos, 950, thank you.
A lovely carp there, ghost carp, as Keith said. And that is
3 kilos 800.
great, and that is definitely going to steady his nerves after that little incident before we started when he broke one of his poles. Rob?
And this is a fish that was caught just a moment ago.
They're proper fish coming out.
They're good fish.
It's not like we saw when Mark Jones won a couple of years ago, where they were predominantly small fish, eyed and tench and the odd orf and occasional carp. It's serious carp right from the start.
The venue is different, Keith. It's changed. They've allowed different things at the venue now. Like there's no floating baits, and all the fish now, a lot of them are feeding near the bottom. And the place is completely different. I've never known it fish this year like it's ever fished before. And that's why I think we're in for an interesting match. It's different. Everything's different.
There's also enough depth in the lake the water temperature change won't affect it that much. I don't know where Rob Hughes normally lives, but he said it was quite warm. Well, believe me, I've been and stood outside.
It must be north.
It isn't very warm.
He must live in norther than Doncaster.
Norther?
Norther than Doncaster. I mean, it is cold. It really, I've had to walk around with a jumper on, and it's cold.
Well, let's go over to peg 11. This is Mark Jones, who won it back in 2005. I hope he wins, because I've got him in the sweep. He's one of the more fancied competitors. Former professional footballer, played for Tottenham Hotspur in his youth. A couple of years ago, he ran out of bait in the last 40 minutes, but as you can hear, he's got a rather vocal following behind him.
Beautiful ghost koi he's got there. There's some fantastic fish in this lake. They'd be rather like those that you all had like in his pond.
Yeah. One of the things about Hayfield, you never know what colour it's going to be when you catch one. When you catch one, you don't know it's been an orange one, an orange and black one, a white one, a yellow one. You don't really know.
Neil McKinnon streaks into a rapid lead, courtesy of a huge fish that he caught almost first cast. Clive Wright in 16 has caught fish as well. Steve Jackson on peg 1. 3 of the 4 corner pegs are working well. And Steve Hemingway, the other corner peg, has the only catch on the second half of the leaderboard.
There's a famous family when it comes to fishing. They're called the Ringers. There's Venus and Serena from the Williams family when it comes to tennis. When it comes to angling, we have Phil and Steve Ringer. Maybe not quite as pretty, but just as good at their sport. Phil's down on peg 8. He's in his 4th finals. And like his dad and his brother, he's never actually won Fishermania, but he's determined to this year, Keith.
He is as well, and he's using a method that Tommy spoke about last night on tight lines. He's on a method feeder, and that fish has just really gone for it. You can see it's got the hook quite far inside its mouth. You're better off using the disgorger there, I would think, Tom.
Absolutely, yeah. I quite fancied Phil when he drew last night. I think we spoke about the best.
You did, yeah.
And I fished one of the pegs when I was Lee, and I was next to Phil. And it was obvious how he was going to fish today. As soon as he drew that peg, I went, I bet he's delighted with that.
This is peg 15, gentlemen. It's Chris Knights, who's a civil servant.
Now you can see
wow.
It's a big fish, and he's caught that really shallow, Tom.
Got a blob on, yeah.
He's using a tiny little float called a blob, which is a little piece of polystyrene painted up, very buoyant, and they've got no penetration in the water. They sit right on the surface, so they don't frighten the fish away. They almost act as like an attractor, and that's a big fish. That will challenge Neil's fish. That.
I think it's certainly 7 to 8 pound. That is, yeah.
Well, over to peg 13 now. It's been lucky for Howard Kelly, who's promising his family a trip to Disney if he wins the £25,000. Nicknamed the Big Hit. He's had a big hit. So
all of a sudden started catching in the high numbers again.
Yeah.
Remember the fishing started to move with the wind again. 13 and 15 have just both had a fish.
Watch Raisin.
You'll watch Raisin it middling a bit.
That's not a Mickey Mouse fish, is it? What?
I'm trying to think of a pun. It's off the scale, that one, Keith.
Oh, you didn't want to sound goofy, did you?
There's no reaction from him there, but clearly delighted. There is Chris Knights. Chris on peg 15, who actually won at Hayfield Lakes in Norwich with the last fish of the day. He took a 15-pound carp in the dying minutes there. He's got another one on the end.
It's a great shot of him hooking a fish there.
That was brilliant, that.
You could see the concentration and that little grimace as he felt the fish.
He'll be quite happy at the moment because his main line is down the side under that tree. And any fish that he catches now in front of him, he'll class them as a bonus. Because he'll be thinking, maybe 2 hours in front of me, and then if I go outside and win match, and anything out in front of him will be a bonus.
One of my favourites here, Crucian carp. Lovely fish.
You won't believe how many's in here, Keith.
Oh, they're the hardest fish in Britain to catch, I think.
Nobody fishes for them because they want to catch carp. I mean, all these anglers now are thinking, well, I need carp to. Straight away, there's been enough carp caught to think it's going to be a good match, we've got to catch carp. And if we're going to catch carp, we've got to fish for them. And the amount of crucian carp and tench in this venue, you will not believe. Nobody fishes for them.
Well, that noise you heard outside the pub was the hooter for our second weigh-in of the afternoon. One of the more pleasant experiences of the afternoon. He's actually been interviewed by Jackie Beltrão, who's down lakeside.
I don't know if you remember a bit earlier when I told you that Chris Knights was using the lucky pink scourger belonging to his daughter Jessica, who's 10, who also fishes. And maybe it will be lucky today, who knows. Now, let's see how much this one weighs.
4 kilos 190.
So even more than 4 kilos. So that's a great start for him. He was a bit nervous, and that is definitely going to steady his nerves. Bryn, what have you got?
Well, Steve Denmead's had a good half an hour or so. I think there's 3 fish in the bag there. Nothing massive, but all of a relatively decent size. And with Steve having had a pretty good first half hour, the extra kilos that we accrue here may just push him that little extra place higher up the leaderboard. So this is Steve Denmead's way. There's one more in there somewhere. If we can find the fella down the bottom. There we go. So Steve Denmead, the man from Frome in Somerset. We'll see how he pushes his score on.
2 kilos 980. 2 kilos 980.
Not a bad half hour then for Steve Denmead. 2 kilos 980 the way on peg 2.
Well, Breamlaw, as we called him earlier on in the afternoon, is our reporter down there. Let's go down to peg 2. This is Steve Denmead. Oh, sorry, peg 6, down to peg 6. Alma Jawad, whose daughter made the draw last night. I think she had to go to bed early after drawing peg 6 because it wasn't one of the more fancied pegs. He's a patient man. He's been trying to bag this fish, we're told, for 3 minutes. I think he missed the last weigh-in. That's how long he's been trying to get it into the net there. Seems to be seeing the funny side of it, but underneath he'll be so frustrated, won't he?
Is this the same fish he's played from earlier?
Yeah.
Is it really? Oh, he's had it on quite a while then, yeah. It can't be hooked in the mouth.
No, I think this isn't the one we noticed him catch out the window.
Right.
This is a second fish after that,
Oh, right.
which will give him 3 fish at least.
Well, this is obviously a big fish, but it's foul
Yeah.
tore it mouth, isn't it? Now that takes some doing, that feeding way playing a fish. It's one of the mistakes people don't make is...
This looks like it's at the right end, Tom. It looks like a hippopotamus when it came up. Then it's a big fish.
Keith, it would be a surprise if it was a hippopotamus.
I know that Tom said there's a good variety in it, but I don't think there's not much in the way of hippos.
And look at that in the background, Neil's netting another fish. I can't get over
doesn't want it to go
all the
around
fish
that
are
platform.
in the flat water, in the flat calm water.
You can see him altering the angle that he's putting pressure on the fish to try and make it swim out of those reeds. Because the more you try and pull it out, the more it will try and swim in. So he makes it a more obtuse angle to try and coax the fish to swim out. Now he's got
a problem.
No, well,
Tangled.
It's done him in the reeds.
oh,
What it's done, it's got wrapped round the reeds. They are very good at that. They go to night school, carp, to learn how to do that. Just swam it reeds and swam over and left the hook in.
they transfer the hook.
Transfer the hook. They still got it. Oh, it's still
The
on.
fish is still there. Well, that's top
Ye
angle.
of little faith, gentlemen.
He
ye of
thought
little
it'd gone
faith.
as
He
well.
thought it had gone. He
thought
wouldn't have been
it'd gone as
yanking
well.
like that if
no,
that
he
fish
would
was
not.
still there. Get in there now, he's saying.
No, that's a bonus.
Yeah, that
because
is
he
a-
thought he'd lost that fish.
That's a big bonus.
Well, it is. It's only 3 kilo, 3.5 kilo.
Yeah.
But he thought he'd lost that, and as you can see, we're foul.
In the pectoral fin, you could see it right there in the fin, right next to its gill.
Well, he's going to be absolutely delighted. Not too far behind him on the lake side is our reporter, Dickie Davis.
Thanks ever so much, Rob.
I like where he's
We're just Simon nearly fell over there just as he's going for the weigh-in. We're just waiting for the net to come up. Armour's been unlucky this morning. He's had a few big fish on there which he's lost, and like you said a minute ago, he nearly lost that one as well, but he stuck at it and he finally got it. There's another decent sized fish in there as well. Let's just see what it comes in at.
Okay.
Are you okay, guys?
Yep.
Right, let's see what these ones weigh, Rob. It's just the second fits here. There's two decent sized fish in there. He's had a good half hour. He was very unlucky earlier on up. Armour, let's see what they weigh on the scales.
6 kilos, 280.
6 kilos, 280. That's a very good half hour. We might just weigh one of those fish individually as well, just to make sure that he might be in with a contender for big fish.
Well, it has been a fantastic start to Fishermania. There was a couple of years where we had to be patient at the start and they started going for the smaller fish. But why, Keith? Why have we seen the big carp so far?
I think it can all be put down to the conditions. There is a ripple on the water, it's cooler, there's good oxygenation, but as Tommy said, it's the change in the rules as well. No floating baits, no fish following baits on the wind, nobody getting loads of floaters in their pegs so they can't fish properly, and the fish looking down for their dinner rather than up. And that makes a huge difference.
Big difference. I mean, the other thing as well is all these anglers are good anglers now. They all fish commercial fisheries, and they know that they need carp to win, so they're actually fishing for carp instead of a mixture. And that's our thing as well. So they're actually fishing for carp. If they don't feed, they can change and go to other species. But at the moment, they're still trying to win the 25 grand, so they're fishing for carp. They've seen a few carp feeding. They know they've got to catch carp, so they're fishing and feeding. Like I've just watched Hamid fish. While he's playing a fish, he's throwing handfuls of bait in. He's really attacking it. And it looks like he's fishing the 4 to 4.5 foot depth mark where the feeding fish on the bottom. It's the best depth at Hayfield. I've said it for years and years. 4.5 foot is the best depth for catching fish.
Every year
I say that. But now there's no floating baits. It's perfect.
Yeah. And the leaderboard confirms that the causeway bank between the two main lakes is the place to be. Neil McKinnon cements his advantage with some more excellent fish. Ahmed Jawad has made his way up to second place in the frame, and Steve Hemingway on corner peg 12 is also making a bit of a move.
There's action down on peg 2. That's Steve Denmead, who in contrast, we mentioned before, has had no chance to practice this week. He is a waggler expert. We swear anglers will mean a great deal, but when you're good at waggling, Keith, what's that mean?
Well, a waggler float is one that waggles on the line. You attach it just by the bottom end. Tommy might have something to show us, I think, a bit later on. But it waggles on the line, and if you look at Steve, although he's fishing in deeper water, he's actually fishing 4.5 foot deep.
He's
fishing at the fish's comfort
He's
zone.
probably got. Well, we heard last night he brought 2 waggler rods, so he's probably got one that's set at 2 foot and one at 4.5 foot, and he's just trying to find out what level the feeding fish are at, and that's what he'll be doing.
Yes, we do promise you later on that Tommy will be getting his wagglers out. All adds to the entertainment. 5 hours of fishing here on Sky Sports this afternoon. This is the premier event in fishing. Ahmed Jawad never believed that he could get to the final. He actually went through 3 qualifiers to get to Fishermania. And he's had a very, very good start. At the start of the day, he was a 33 to 1 outsider.
What he's done there, he's rested his inside peg, where you can see him feeding it now, and he's gone out. He's probably fishing the waggler. And here's Steve Denmead again.
Peg 2. To be honest with you, he looks like he's going to be dangerous there, because there'll only be him along there doing it. He'll have it to himself. Yeah. He's gone with one set plan. And I think what I said earlier is somebody with a set plan will win it today. They'll go down with one thing and it'll work. And at the moment, it's working.
Well, you've met our anglers this afternoon, you've met our experts in Tommy and Keith here in the studios, but let's meet the real stars of the show. They're, of course, our fish.
Neil McKinnon continues to lead the field with 14.5 kilos, but Steve Denmead is right on his tail from peg 2, catching shallow on the waggler. And in 5th place, Will Raisin is making a move. The lower half of the leaderboard, Steve Jackson in peg 1 will be disappointed with less than 6 kilos at this stage. Chris Knights is doing well, and poor old Mark Jones, 2005 champion, is currently supporting the field. In the big fish stakes, Neil McKinnon's 4.15 specimen has been trumped by Chris Knights with a monster of 4.19 kilos.
Well, here's a man who has never won it before. In fact, he won the very first qualifier, Neil McKinnon. He's got off to a flyer this afternoon. A total catch so far after 3 weigh-ins of 14.54 kilos. Neil McKinnon.
I'm going to have a little punt on what's happened with Neil. I think he's gone in on the chopped worm, and you see there he's got a little perch. I think he's being plagued with perch. That's why we saw him try sweet corn.
Yeah.
The sweet corn's not worked. Now, it could be there's no carp under that tree.
I'll tell you exactly what's happened. He's gone down too early. He should have gone down, had a look, and come off it and gone back on his other line.
Yes.
And kept feeding it till the fish come into the side.
So there are perch there. Is it not worth taking a few perch and just...
No, you've got to catch carp. He's got, at this moment in time, you've got to look for carp, because carp are feeding.
He needs 12 of those perch to make £1.
Yeah.
He's got 1 carp in his net that goes £9.
If he fishes them perch, he'll come last.
Yeah.
And what he's got to do now, he's got to feed them out of his peg, keep feeding, and wait for the carp to come in. And his runner has almost got to watch that peg for him while he keeps feeding to see if there's any movement in the side.
So it's like having a caddy in golf, is it really?
Absolutely, yes, it's massively important. You've got to keep... It's a massive thing. Like I said, I learned so much last year, because you're watching your angler, you're watching his peg, and you're watching the other anglers. You're trying to work it out, how far you are behind and what you've got to do. Have you got to change tactics? Last year I were helping Kieran. After half an hour, we were out of it.
Yeah.
They were catching so many fish, and we had to change tactics.
Now, the favourite at the start of the day was Will Raisin, England international, professional angler, living up to his reputation now, down there on peg 14.
He'll catch him. He put that feed in at the start. He's still on the feeder line. He said to me when he drew, I said, how are you going to do it? But he said, I'm going to fish it like it's Gold Valley. I said, what do you mean? He said, I'm going on the feeder. Nobody knows how to fish the feeder at Gold Valley better than him. It's in his front garden. He walks out of his front door and Gold Valley Lakes are looking at him.
Him and Steve, that method they're doing, practice that. I was watching them the other day, and they caught quite a few fish doing it. And they caught other fish as well. They caught tench, and they caught skimmers and other fish as well.
But he's so accurate, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's so accurate. And they've seen me bought Jonah Luck.
Well, we did say that, it's going to swap and change the leaderboard this afternoon. This is the man who was at the bottom of it not so long ago. Maybe not so anymore. Mark Jones, previous winner, 16th out of 16 at our last weigh-in. But as you two guys have predicted all afternoon, it's going to ebb and flow.
And I think that's one of them mine, the catch.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, they're massive.
That's a monster.
Now that peg he is on, last year when we were Kieran, that's the peg we caught them on, and when we practiced the other day with me and Lee Kerry, that's the same peg as we caught these big eyed on.
That is,
For some reason they live on that peg. We've caught them in practice, but we've caught them nowhere else but that one peg that he's on. It's incredible.
Mark Jones said Tom is a winner in 2005. You don't have to be young or old, it doesn't matter what your age is in this competition. And Steve Cook is one of our golden oldies. His 5th finals, he won it back in '99. Oh dear, he can hear every word I'm saying.
The thing is, though, he can look to his left.
He's a lot older than that.
He can look to his left and see a real golden oldie. He's got granddad ringer behind him.
We've got Compo and Clegg there, haven't we? Steve, how's it going?
Not to plan, to be fair, but nobody's really running away with it. And it's still really wide open, because these fish could switch on at any time. Conditions are really right, they just don't seem to be feeding today. But we'll just keep plugging away and hope to keep putting odd fish in net and have a good last hour running in.
You just love this competition, don't you? I mean, you were saying before, you're very magnanimous in saying that you've won it before, and in some ways you hope that somebody doesn't win it for a second time. Was that genuine, or just being sporting?
Well, I mean, to be fair, all 3 of us are fishing to win this competition today, and we want to be first to win it twice. But it seems like you're stealing something away from the rest of these guys, because to actually walk on that stadium and receive that trophy, there isn't another feeling like it in the world. And it's a weird thing to say, but yeah, if one of them to win it, I wouldn't feel any animosity or feel anything against them. You know, it's a special moment, and I've felt that moment.
You had a rather slow start. You can't see this because you've got many things down alongside you, but don't have a television monitor. We're showing the public now your first fish of the day. It looked lovely, but it took you an hour and a half to catch it, Steve.
Yeah, well, I started, my main plan was to catch a few on feeder early on, which we've caught fish on feeder all week. It maybe took you like 15 or 20 minutes to get your first, and I had quite a few liners in the first half hour, which is fish swimming into my line between my feeder and my rod tip. So I thought I would get one, so I just kept plugging away, noticing that nobody was really pulling away. And you only need an hour at that, and you can soon put like 50 pound in a net. And especially the size of fish that's in it, there've been really big fish that we've caught all week, but it just never happened. So I had to make a decision to try and catch shallow. When you're not fishing for them shallow, there's a lot of fish under the pole. You can see carp moving about. As soon as you have a pole out, they all move away.
You do talk a good game, we'll give you that. You kept us entertained for the last 5 minutes. Sorry to disturb you there, and let's hope that you get on the leaderboard. Thank you very much as well. It's not an air raid siren, it's the hooter, which signals that our anglers are going to have their latest bag of fish weighed. It's going to be weigh-in 4. Let's get down to Lakeside, and one of our reporters down there is James Haddock.
Peg 11 at the moment. Mark Jones, let's see what he's got. He's had a reasonably good last half hour. 2 fair-sized fish landed by him as they're just brought out now, and let's see what he's got in there and what sort of weight this can do. Trailing behind those leaders a fair way at the moment. He needs a fair amount to start catching up. So 3 in there, Tiddler in there as well, as we wait for the scales and see what that one weighs.
2 kilos exactly.
2 kilos exactly for Mark Jones, so he's still going to be trailing the leaders by some way. And on to you, Jackie.
Well, it was a bit of a slow start, wasn't it, for Mr. Raisin, but he's definitely making his move. 2 fish in the bag in the last weigh-in, and there's 2 more carp in there now. Not sure how big they are, because it's quite far away when he landed them. But off you go. Let's take those fish out and see if this moves him up the leaderboard. The European champion, probably the most fancied man here in terms of who was going to win this competition. But it was a quiet old beginning, and now it's well, it's just really hotting up on this bank. Over you come, Mick. So Mick, the weight steward, tips them into the net, and Bob's going to give us the weight just as soon as he gets them in there. And I think this must have been a huge sigh of relief, really, for Will Raisin last time round, and he's probably pretty relaxed now he's got these 2 in as well. Oh, there's 3 in there. One of those little bream in there. We didn't see that one, actually, did we? He landed that sneakily. So let's have a look and see how much this weighs, if it's going to whiz him up the leaderboard. Up to 2nd, 3rd even. Do you reckon, Bob?
Just a minute. 5 kilos, 550.
There you go. That is going to probably whiz him up the leaderboard. And again, another sigh of relief from one of the favourites here.
Neil McKinnon hangs on to his lead, but look at second place. Will Raisin has virtually doubled his weight in one weigh-in, and Steve Hemingway's having a bit of a go on peg 12 as well. Mark Jones has raised himself off the floor and is now standing at 3.42 kilos, and Lee Kerry is the man who's replaced him on the bottom of the board with just 1.8 kilos. There's still a long way to go. And in the Big Fish Stakes, Chris Knight still holds supreme with his carp weighing just under 4.2 kilos.
Well, this is down on peg 2. You can see the rear there of Steve Denmead. I'm not quite sure how fatigued he is. He had a 7-hour journey to get here. You need to be at your very, very best. He's got one in the bag. Not the biggest we're going to see this afternoon, maybe, but significant.
Somebody must have given him another rod, because he's actually got a bomb rod set up there. He told us he'd only got 2 waggler rods, so he's got a bomb rod set up there. He's caught that on a bomb. Where he's been loose feeding his pellets, where he's been fishing his waggler, if you remember earlier, we spoke about chucking a bomb over with an air rig pellet, and there's just caught one on that. So somebody must have lent him a bomb rod as well. And a pole. He's got a pole there as well, look. But there's a lot of fish at Hayfield, even in the open matches now caught. You fish a pellet and with a bomb over it, and that's what he's done. That he's come with that game plan.
Yeah. We saw Kieran on that peg, didn't we, a couple of years ago?
Last 2 years, in fact, he's been on it,
Has he been on the same peg as he?
Same peg,
and he's fished that same sort of attack, that more of a waggler line than anything.
But it was different. The fish were feeding differently in the past. But now it's a completely different venue. There's another good fish there, look. That looks like an hide as well, Keith.
I think that's Sean Clifford, yeah, it's a carp.
It's a carp, yes, it's a carp.
Fully scaled mirror, isn't it?
Now, it looks at that, looks like he's caught that on the pole on the bottom.
On the bottom, yeah.
Yeah, it's fishing. It'll be interesting to see how far out it's
And another
fished.
one, look.
Yeah.
Hooked in the wing.
Yeah, hooked in the wing.
That shows the fish, they're on the feed, they're mooching around the feed, and they swim into the line. Give you an indication, you strike, and you accidentally hook them in the fin or in part of their body.
Not intentionally,
No.
you know, it's one of them things. I'd like to see Neil, I'd like to see him put more of a bigger pot full in. He's using a little cup with not a lot of bait in. And I do believe in that particular peg he'll get too many small fish, and it needs something to get rid of them.
I'll tell you what I'd do, Tom, if I was there. Having watched Jacko the other day, I would get two of those big 250ml pots. I'd fill those with chopped worm, I'd dump them in, and then I'd go back to the first line he starts. Right. Even if he doesn't get a bite, even if he only gets a couple of roach there, it'll give the perch a chance to come in, the carp a chance to come in, disturb the perch, start feeding, get him confident on peg 5. That's what I think should happen.
Yeah, I agree with that. One of the best methods on this particular place is to do what I call dump it. Dump it, catch a fish, dump it, catch a fish. But if you're getting small fish like Neil's, obviously, you've got to get rid of them. You don't want them.
No, that's right.
You've got to dump them and get the fish out.
We have action, gentlemen, down on peg 16. Clive Wright, who's somewhere in the middle of the leaderboard at the moment. This was a rather fancied peg, I think, at the start of the week, down near the willow tree. And Clive, in his first Fishermania attempt, got to the final. And well, he's no doubt savouring the afternoon and the atmosphere and the big crowd and the television audience. And I think he's going to show off here.
Oh, that's a nice fish.
It's a serious fish. Now, the fish we saw Clive catch earlier,
that's a big fish.
He caught fishing straight out in front of him. This could be one of those margin monsters, one of the fish that live down the side, the ones that won Neil McKinnon the match last year. Now 4,190 is leading the big fish prize. That's not going to be far away.
And also, we've just seen Steve Jackson catch. We're interested to see if he's gone down the side. Now 1 and 16 are dangerous pegs now because this is the time. I mean, lots of these anglers, especially them two, will be feeding that inside line peg for probably 2 or 3 hours and hope they're going to come the last 2 hours. And Jacko's got one. It'd be interesting to see if he's gone down the side as well. And if they start catching down the side, they're going to be very, very dangerous.
That's a bigger perch, so he's almost certainly fishing down the side now, because that's his chopped worm line.
That's a chopped worm line down the side. But that's nearly a pound.
Yeah.
Just keep putting them in there, and you must feed them out your peg to get the carpet. I don't think they're feeding enough to get rid of them. They're not feeding enough.
11 ounces, Tom, that weren't a pound.
11. It lost its worms come out its mouth, so yeah, I'll give you that one.
It's all rather pensive. The anglers know that any second now, there we go, right on cue, the hooter will go as we have our latest weigh-in. Let's go down to Lakeside.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, will this be the winning peg again this year? Won last year, peg 16, and it's just had a very exciting half an hour. Clive Wright has got 2 fish in the net, and one of them is just a monster. Off you go there, Keith. Let's see what we've got in there. And there's going to be 2 weigh-ins here, actually. One for the biggest fish, and let's see what the total weight is. Look at those 2 carp. It was a bit quiet for him in the last hour or so, and then just in the last half an hour, well, that peg seems to have come good, doesn't it? It's always a bit of a struggle, this, isn't it, when especially one of the fish is so huge. And Bob with the weight net. It's quite good for your muscles, this, Bob, isn't it? It might be too much for the scales.
Buy the big one separately, we're going to have to take them out.
Right, there's too much in there, so we're going to have to take out the smaller carp and just weigh the big fish and then put it back and then weigh the other fish. Now Clive has got his 2 daughters. I think you mentioned this earlier on. He's got his 2 daughters watching him. That's Lucy, who's 22, and Emily, who's 18. They've got a good deal with him that if he wins the £25,000, he's going to give them 10% each. So the small carp, then, what's that then?
The big carp.
Oh, this is the big one, and it's definitely a contender, isn't it, for fish of the day?
Way over. 6 kilos, 500 and... 6 kilos, 560.
6 kilos, 560. So that is the biggest fish by over 2 kilos so far. So well done down there, Clive. Biggest fish so far by a mile, actually. So let's just weigh the other fish, guys, as soon as you can. So this was his earlier catch. He just landed this one, actually. Took him quite a while to get that one in. And this is the other one that he got earlier on this half hour. And this could potentially put him into the lead. Now let's have a look. What's this one? What is it, Bob?
3 kilos, 600.
3 kilos, 600. So somebody do some maths for me. Does that take him right up the leaderboard? He was just sort of mid-leaderboard, wasn't he? But it's definitely going to whiz him up there. So it's been a great half an hour, hasn't it, for Clive there on peg 16. Rob, back to you.
In this way.
Jackie, thank you very much. Keith and Tom are doing the maths here. Keith actually knows what it's like to have scales that don't weigh you. Keith would describe that fish as obese, I think. It's going to win, possibly at the moment, Clive Wright. £2,500 is the biggest fish of the day. Will he be taking over from Neil McKinnon at the top of the leaderboard? Neil's been leading all day after the first 4 weigh-ins. We'll be calculating that in a few moments' time. Thank you very much to Jackie there, who's down at Lakeside. Right at the other end of the lake on peg 1 is the 2001 winner, Steve Jackson, joint favourite. He's had a decent-sized fish there.
Another perch, eh? Yeah. I don't think Jacko's feeding enough. I don't. You've got to drive fish into your peg. And before we went to Steve, then we saw Clive hook another fish. And also, the anglers now will have to start changing the game. The game, how they're going to start thinking now.
You've got to start attacking.
We've got a big crowd here today, and the thousands of fishing fans who've turned up have been treated to a wonderful match so far, and no indication who is going to be the 14th champion of Fishermania.
See what he's doing there now, Rob? He's putting his pole tip under the water because fish will pull in the opposite direction to what you're pulling. Now, as he holds the pole up, the fish will pull downwards. Now what he's done, he's lowered the pole to bring the fish up to the surface. Now look at the angle his line's making now. Now as he lifts the pole up, the angle changes, the fish has got a chance to swim down again.
Could do have been 6'8" at the moment, couldn't he?
He needs to be Tim Collier, the rugby player.
In the back of the net.
Riz got it, that's the main thing.
Well, an important catch there.
I think that were a good example, actually, how to take your time and make sure you get the fish. I'm a big believer in, when you've got a fish on, make sure you get it out. Yeah. We saw an angler earlier bullying it and he lost it.
Yes.
The first change at the top of the leaderboard, Clive Wright on fancied peg 16, takes over from Neil McKinnon, who's been fishless for a couple of weighs now. Will Raisin has failed to catch a fish during this session. On the second half of the leaderboard, it's a struggle for most. Phil Ringer's caught a couple of fish, Mark Jones has managed to bag another one, but it's very, very hard work. On the big fish leaderboard, Clive Wright is now staring a £2,500 bonus in the face with a fish of 6.5 kilos.
Another creature as well. This is a big fish.
Another big fish. And we think he's got another one in net as well, don't we?
He's had it on quite some time, this fish.
There'll be a lot of sinking feelings in the stomachs of a few anglers at the moment because they did not want this to happen. And if it keeps going under like this, it's going to be all over, to be honest with you.
Well, he's absolutely running away with it at the moment, and he's managed to find a family of, oh, dear me, large fish down there.
Nearly got
but
tangled
first
in
you
his
don't
line,
succeed. There'll be a few people down there. I know they're sporting and they're magnanimous, but they want him to just miss this one, won't they?
Some anglers do, some anglers don't. I'd never ever wish a fish off for anybody, no matter what happens personally. Even when I'm fishing, somebody else, I think fair enough.
Just wish another one on your gear.
That's right, you do. You're right. But I know some do, but I would never ever wish a fish off for anybody.
What's the view from above? Let's hope that our camera up there.
It's a big fish, another big fish. This, and just think Connie's had one 14 pound in English, and it's well, English for you're in Yorkshire, Keith. Remember?
I was going to say we've been speaking in kilos all afternoon, haven't we?
Sorry,
in pounds, what would it be?
6 kilo, 14 pound apparently.
Yeah,
14
and a bit.
Wow,
that's a big fish. That. In match terms, it's a big fish.
Well, it's enormous, Tom. If somebody had said to you 20 years ago you were going to be catching 13, 14, 15 pound fish on matches, you'd have laughed at them, wouldn't you?
Well, I can remember catching my first 14 pound at Whiteacres, and I caught 2 the same day, and I spoke about it for 10 years after, never caught one bigger. Nowadays, you just take it for normal.
Yeah. I was 39 when I, of course, caught my first double-figure carp. Now you can catch 5 or 6 in the same match sometimes.
Did you take a photo?
Yeah,
black and white.
Yeah, sepia.
Well, Clive Wright is 51 years of age. He's having his golden year at the moment. He's had a wonderful last out. He's got to be careful that fish doesn't get snagged in the tree to his left-hand side. We were talking before about the willow tree, where a lot of the fish, in kind of layman's terms, hang out, don't they?
The tree's not the problem. What he's got is a spare peg to his left, a peg that's not in the match today. And these pegs are platforms, and they've got scaffold poles under the water. And if the fish go around those, I will tell you, you will lose it. You will not get it out of there, no.
No doubt at all.
The fish will swim out, but your hook won't.
He's got to fight him.
There we go. Another good fish. Tell you something, that's another.
That's getting on for 4 kilo, Tom, if it's not 4 kilo.
I reckon
it's
that's
4
kilo.
That, it's 4 kilo.
Another good fish. Yeah. And we know he's won it net, so he's got another 7 kilo in his net already, with a while to go.
This is the man who was heavily fancied, Will Raisin, professional angler, England international, trophy cabin, absolutely bursting back home. He had a great hour where he was catching it, and he got himself up the leaderboard. But at the moment, he's in 4th position. That's the hooter just gone. Let's get down now to Lakeside and see Bryn Law.
Thanks, Rob. Steve Denmead continues to catch fish, although not big fish and not perhaps in sufficient numbers to make a real dent on the lead just at the moment. But he's hanging on in there. That's the key to it. He's hanging on in there, giving himself a chance as we approach the home straight. We'll have a look what's in the bag now. Just 1 fish, I think, in the bag on peg 2 for Steve Denmead. But the weight, of course, is all important at this stage. As long as it's a big one, he'll be happy. Let it settle.
Two kilos, 250.
There you go, ticking over still. 2 kilos, 250. That's the weight in the bag for Steve Denmead.
Thanks, Bryn. Well, we're over on peg 7 with Chris Downs. Mick, if you can bring that out for us now, that would be fantastic. It's been very, very quiet on this bank. Neil McKinnon, of course, was in the lead early on. Virtually nothing in the bag in the last hour. Chris Downs has got a couple of decent-sized fish, which might just keep him in touch. But then again, judging by what's happening over on peg 16, he might just be starting to get out of reach. Brian's just coming down to help out. Let's see what's in there, guys. This bank has gone very, very quiet. Neil McKinnon's fishing out to the corner. He hasn't had an awful lot of joy. Armour's fishing straight ahead of him. He's not had a lot of joy. But Chris Downs, just in the last half hour, has had a couple.
2 kilos 400.
2 kilos 400. Jackie, what's the big news over on Peg 16?
Well, the big news is that Clive Wright has just lost another big fish, but luckily there are 2 more in the bag. Let's have a little look then, Keith. You can go in and get those out. And you can see that he's fishing well to the left now, right sort of over to that willow tree to the left. And it's just paying off, isn't it? Look. Now, I don't know what's happening over the other side because it's quite hard to see across there, but I don't know if anyone's catching as big a fish as Clive is managing just now. So 2 more carp in there. Not as big as the over 6 kilo one he had last time, but nevertheless, I think it's going to keep him up there, isn't it? Bob?
Yeah.
£6 kilos 110.
So there you go, that is definitely going to keep him at the top, I am pretty sure. Back to you.
Jackie, thank you very much. Keith is busily converting that. Well, I think that's definitely going to keep him at the top of the leaderboard. He, of course, before that weigh-in had 16.57 kilos, and he lost one just before that weigh-in.
Got another
as well.
one on now, though. 22,680 he's on, and he's got another fish on now.
Go on, show how clever you are. What's that in pounds?
49 pounds.
Thank you, Tom.
You got it as well. £49. Might even be quite nearly 50, that.
This one has swum, it's just over 50. 45,440, 45,400 is what are we talking about?
I ain't got a clue.
Get on with the commentator.
This is this fish has swum straight out the corner, and I'd have guessed it was a small fish. The way he's holding it now, it's a huge fish. Do you think it
or
might
a
be
big
foul,
fish?
Tom?
Or
I
a
think
big
it's a big fish, yeah.
Just looking at the angle of the pole where it's straight out in front of
Although, having lost one, you don't lose many carp that you hook in the mouth, do you?
No.
They've got fairly rubbery old lips, and once the hook goes in, it stays in. But if you hook them, especially in a scale, then the hook can just fly out at any minute. You think, oh, I've lost one. And it's not, there's nothing you can do about it. You haven't hooked it deliberately in the body. You've hooked it accidentally in the body. And some schools have thought you don't deserve to catch them, but they are harder to land.
It's not done on purpose.
No.
But the most interesting thing that I think about now, when we saw him feed earlier, fed with a big pot.
Yeah.
You know, we spoke half an hour about we think Neil should be going in with a big pot. He has done. He's gone in with a big pot, and he's drove the fish into its side, into his peg.
I think this one's up right, you know, Tom. I think it's a big one.
It's a big fish.
The way it just rolled on the surface.
His daughters, Keith, were saying that he's been the absent father this week because he's been down here practicing, getting used to the lake, and also you said before he took the advice of the Fishermania 2006 winner Neil Machin.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. Well, when he went to when he qualified, he actually went to Neil at Cudmore and said, "How do you fish this peg?" Neil told him how to fish it. He went and won it. Yeah. He's come here and drove the peg that Neil won from last year. Quite scary, really.
So his daughters want 10%. His mates behind him would like a few bob on Monday morning at work, and now Neil Machin's going to have a cut of the prize winning as well.
He'll finish up owing about £2,000 the day where he's going. But the most important thing is not the. I mean, the money's nice, but it's same as some of the lads who already spoke. Fishermania champion. Your name on that is everything nowadays. It's so important. It's a massive event.
Notice he's using that pull elastic method, Tom, as well. Are you keen on it?
I use it all the time. I use the one out to the side. The beauty about the pull method, Keith, is you can use a grade elastic less. And that's what I use it for, so I can use smaller hooks. And it's not one where you tighten up and try and bully the fish. You can actually use a grade of elastic less, and you can play the fish better.
What's in the mouth, Tom?
Yeah, a big fish. Another 4 kilos.
Getting on for 4 kilos, yeah.
Absolute monster in the back of the net. It must be a sinking feeling for the other anglers around the lake.
And look at that leaderboard. Clive Wright cementing his position at the top, 22.5 kilos. Will Raisin still on his tail and still hasn't caught a fish during that way. And the struggle continues. The second half of the leaderboard shows very little change. Lee Kerry is still at the bottom of the pile. And to be fair, if anyone beats that fish of Clive Wright, 6.5 kilos plus, they will be very, very lucky. That's a monster.
Clive Wright, leader, 22.68 kilograms. Biggest fish of the day as well. He's going to be taking home a very big check this evening. He said beforehand he was looking forward to just enjoying the afternoon. Well, he's having the day of his life so far. Probably only just eclipsing him qualifying at Browning Cudmore in Staffordshire. His first ever qualification for Fishermania, and well, he's making it look so easy, and he's got another one.
His first ever go. I reckon he's got 8 kilos in his net now. This is another
3 to 4.
Well, it's probably up. It's 4+, I reckon, Tom. This is the time it's taken him to land.
Fish.
One we saw, we think he'd snagged it in the arm, in the petrol fin. I'll call them arms. And that's undoubtedly why he lost the fish. That's a miracle. It's probably not quite as big then, because mirrors tend to fight harder, but they're not quite as big.
Well, he's lifted that. It's a big
still
fish.
A decent fish. It's still 4 kilos, you know.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah.
So that gives him another 12 in the net.
I've got to take my hat off to him, because I like the way that he's feeding it, and I like the way they're the most two nervous people on the bank, because it's certainly a lot worse watching than it is fishing. But he's feeding it positively. He's got big baits on, and he's catching. He knows there's big fish there. He's fishing it really well. I've got to say, full credit to him.
He just had a bit of a puff then.
He's looking
of relief.
What he's looking for there, he's looking to see if he can see any movement, any fish moving in his peg, any tails coming up and things like that.
Yeah.
That's what he's looking for at the moment. Because if his tail's there, he won't feed on top of them. What he'll do, he'll wait till he can't see him, then he'll feed on top of them to get him back in his peg.
We did say earlier in the programme that any peg could possibly win it this afternoon, and as we were also underlying last night, that when the peg draw was made, that the fishermen feel that is so important. This is how the lake pans out. This is where the fishermen are 1 to 16. And the peg has proven to be so important this afternoon, hasn't it? 14 and 16 have been the 2 hot pegs this afternoon.
Yeah, I've got to take my hat off here to Francis Wilson, the Sky weatherman, because he told us last night that it was going to be light and variable winds, northerly in the morning. Exactly what he said has happened. He said it would brighten up a bit. There was a chance of a shower in the afternoon, and the lake has gone very calm. The weather's extremely benign. Now, it's still chilly, but this is the important thing. This area here, that bush holds a host of fish. There's a pipe comes in there, there's water trickles in that pipe, disturbs the area, makes it a little bit more coloured. The fish just love being in that situation, they really do.
He's got a big fish on again, Will.
And as you said there, you mentioned Ahmed Jawad earlier on was feeding as he was fighting the fish. Will's just done exactly the same thing. Yeah. And he's got to do something. He's got to make something happen.
What is either going to make it happen to kill his peg?
Okay, he was getting liners, he was getting signs on the feeder, but the fish just weren't, as Jackie said, they weren't nibbling hard enough. He's got one to nibble hard enough on the pole now, and that's where Will wants him. If he can get him on the pole, he's lethal.
If he's playing that, that's a big fish again. They don't. I mean, he's probably the best angler at getting fishing quick that I've ever seen. One of our lads, Andy Oldham, he's very good at that, but just know what to do. He just knows what to do. But
he nets him so early.
Unbelievable. He knows exactly when the secret is when they come up the first time is then to net him, and he brings the fish up, so it comes up and he nets it the first time. Whereas most people would leave that and then they have to play the fish. The way Clive is catching, you've got to fancy Clive, but I'd never write this bloke off.
We've seen him in World Champions, Tom. He's just awesome.
Well, we've both seen him as a kid. Yeah. Growing up, we know that is a big fish.
He uses a surprisingly small landing net for such big fish, and if you notice, it's got very open mesh, so he can move it faster through the water to scoop them. He's such a strong lad. I mean, he leaves me standing. I've got tennis elbow and all the rest of it through trying to do what he does, but he just does it. Look at that. That is
a considerable fish, isn't it?
Big fish, that.
That is considerable. And this could be a pivotal point in Fishermania 14. It may not be the biggest fish of the day, but it's going to be a fish that could have a significant effect when we have our next weigh-in.
The there has been a lot of action over here, I have to tell you, and we'll raise and let's weigh him in first of all. Off you go, Mick, down to pick out, and he's got a very big fish in the net. You saw him land that. It was a big carp. I don't know if it's big enough to overtake the biggest fish so far, which is 6 kilos 560, but we're going to find out, aren't we? So here it comes. And you just wouldn't count this man out, actually. I think, you know, he's going for it. He's going to try and catch up at peg 16, and you really want him to be catching you up, because as I was talking to some of the guys around here, I said, if he gets a bad peg, can he make it fish like a good peg? And everyone said, yes, he can. He's that good. So here's the fish. Now that's big. I don't think it's as big as the other one. What do you think, Bob?
4 kilos. I was better off last time.
So
It's 3 kilos 500.
there you go. So that is definitely going to sort of keep him up there in a second, but I don't think it's going to catch up with Clive down on peg 16, because he's got loads in his keep net, and he's also got one on just now.
We'd rather have action than seeing the scales, and Clive Wright has just been in magnificent form. Every time we get a camera down there, every time we speak to you, Jack, he interrupts by catching a fish.
Right. Terrible, isn't it? Yeah. Another big fish again. Oh, big fish in that corner.
Scoutsmen are just wait until the fish is in the net, because otherwise seeing that figure appear could spook the fish, and you don't want that at the very last minute. He's trying his best to land it anyway.
Will Raisin will be saying, start weighing now. Spook the fish, please.
Will Raisin will be thinking, I hope I land this one, because I've just seen out the window Will's just hooked another fish, and the way he's fighting it, it's another big one. We were both surprised that fish of Will's only went 3.5 kilos. It looked bigger.
Yeah, it certainly did, yeah.
But the mirrors don't seem to weigh so much, Tom, do they?
It looked 5 kilo, I must admit, when he caught it. That's another one.
That's Clive Wright, isn't it? Clive Wright, peg 16, our leader at the last weigh, and he had an advantage of just under 6 kilos. Once that fish is in the net safely, doesn't want to lose it, of course, our steward, I think he's called Keith, can go down there, nick the net, and have a word with the patient Jackie Beltrow.
Thank you, Rob. Well, you know what? I thought I was a jinx. Normally when I'm on a bank, they don't win. And perhaps my luck's turned, because this guy has got so many fish in this net now. It's definitely going to be 2 weigh-ins here, because there's just too much in there. So let's do that little game with Bob again and see how much he thinks in there. Bob, what do you think's in there? You're the expert. What do you think? Come on.
I have just shined myself up on this one. I think we're going to get over 10 kilos with this. It's 2 weighs. Yeah, just 2 at a time.
And there's a very big one in there. And the thing about Clive, he's just so calm. It's unbelievable. He's just sitting there. He's not flustering. He's not nervous. And he's still attacking.
6 kilos 550.
6 kilos 550 for the first lot. Do you think the second lot's as much? About the same, we reckon.
$6 kilos 310.
Spot on then, almost, weren't you? Well done. So, I mean, that's just going to keep him way out in the lead, and he's still attacking it, still landing the big fish. How can anyone else compete right now?
And there's confirmation. Clive Wright is battering them from the margins. Will Raisin is making another move. Is it too late for the world champion from Aldershot? Neil McKinnon has caught another fish at last, and Steve Jackson's even put 1 or 2 into the bag.
Clive is now wide for sound. He can hear us. His caddy alongside him is phoning a friend. Quick, get the Sky Plus on, Clive.
Hello there.
I don't want to be too presumptuous, but congratulations on a fantastic afternoon so far.
Thank you.
Just an hour to go. Is that going to be the shortest hour of your fishing career or the longest hour of your fishing career?
I would think it will probably be the longest.
I love to ask this question. Clive, what is going right?
What's going right?
Yeah.
Well, the fish are coming into the corner, obviously, and luckily enough I'm catching bigger fish than everybody else. I just bumped one.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
I think the only thing that will stop you at the moment is if you join us in the pub where we're presenting from, adjoining the lake for a pie and a pint. Yeah. There might be a whip round from the other 15 anglers to buy you that pie and pint as well.
Is that right?
We've been impressed, Clive. It's Keith Arthur here, mate. How you doing?
How you doing, Keith? All right, mate.
Yeah, we've been very impressed by your positive approach, the way you've kept feeding, kept the feed going in, and you've had a couple of anacondas on the hook for bait. You've been using proper worms.
Yeah, well, it's a one match. There's only one can win it, isn't there, Keith? You know, yes. So you've got to be positive. You get nothing for second. So it's big baits. And hopefully we'll get some more big fish. Got another one on at the minute.
Oh, we can see you, don't worry.
All right. I've lost probably, I think I've fouled about 4 or 5 down that margin, and I lost 3 earlier on shallow on the pellet. Other than that, it's been pretty good.
Explain how they're fighting, Clive, because they seem to be very active, the fish today, more active probably than normal. Do you think that's due to the higher oxygen content because of the lower temperatures?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably what it is, Keith, but I mean, these are pretty, I mean, I think the smallest fish I've had is about 3.5 pounds. So, yeah, but they are fighting hard. But the bites aren't, they're not what you'd call runaway bites, you know, they're just little dinkers.
Really?
Yeah, they're not sailing away like they were. The first fish I had, that sailed away, but all the others have just tiny little bites.
That's normally a good sign, though. It shows they're there and confident and just munching away without a care in the world, I think.
Well, I hope so. Everybody said to me last night, you know, you've drawn the best peg. But you never know till the day, do you, Keith?
You never know.
No, you don't. I'll tell you what, if you want to get rid of your daughters, you've got about 50 proposals in here for them.
Is that right?
Well
I'll
done,
tell you
mate.
what, Keith, while I'm on, is that Tom, is it?
Yeah.
While I'm on, if I just say hello to me mate Paul Sibley and his son who are watching. Paul had a heart attack a couple of months back, and he's on the road to recovery now, so I'd just like to say hello to him.
Well, you just did, mate. Well done.
Well done, mate. And
Well
I'll
done, Paul. Brilliant.
I'll tell you what, it takes a good angler to think of someone else while you're on the way to winning 25 odd grand.
Well, we got another hour to go yet. There's a lot could happen yet.
Yeah. Clive, thank you very, very much. We wish you the very best in the next hour. You've got an hour left. It's looking very good. We invite you to join us for a pie and a pint for the next hour if you like. Give the other lads a chance.
No, I think I'll stay where I am.
You've been a great sport, and your daughter's behind. You've already got that money spent. However, not so far away on peg 14. You may just want to look to, I think it's on your right-hand side, is Will Raisin, who's trying desperately to keep up with you. Will has something on the end of his line.
Is he?
Yes.
That was shallow rig as well, that was shallow.
Was it? I noticed he's on lighter elastic. He's on white there. He was on grey before, which is a grade and a half up. So, and that's just hooked outside the mouth.
Outside
See?
the mouth. Has he caught that shallow?
We'll have a look.
Oh, that'd be interesting if he's caught shallow. He's not letting him get away with it, though,
No,
is
he's
he?
not. No. Still on the one. Yes, he's shallow.
Either outside or shallow. No, we'll think he's shallow.
We said before it's going to be a marathon, not a sprint this afternoon. Now for Will, it's going to be a sprint, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
He's got to go hell for leather in the next hour.
I must tell you, he only knows one way.
Well, there's been more action around here, as you well know. Will Raisin has got something in the net. I don't think it's as much as in Clive's net, but we're going to have a look right now because it's weighing time. That's what the hooter meant. He's not catching as big a fish, actually, as Clive, but he is catching now regularly, and he is trying his best to catch up. He knows what he's got to do. About 15 kilos or so he's behind, so quite a bit of work to do in the last hour or so. Let's have a look at, well, he's got this one on still, but let's have a look at what he's got in the net just now. I think we're going to have to wait until he lands this one before they can go in. It's a little one, but they all count, as they say. So off you go. You can go in now and let's have a look what he's got. He's been pretty patient, has Will Raisin, and as you said, he's going to know exactly what he's got to do still to catch up. And he does have a knack, actually, of catching fish late on in big competitions when the pressure is really on, when you really need him to catch something. He's your man, really. So here comes the net. So let's have a look what he's got. 15 kilos or so behind. And there's a fair bit in there, isn't there? Let's play our game with Bob again. Bob, what do you think? Have a little guess.
See the fish first. I think about 6.5 kilos.
Well, there we go, 6.5 kilos there or thereabouts, we reckon. At the official weight.
7 kilos 100.
Great, that's going to keep him in the hunt, definitely, but we've also got quite a lot in the net down the other end on peg 16. Let's go and have a little look. Let's have a look at this weigh-in for him. So Clive, 15 kilos or so in the lead already before this one. And there's a really lovely big carp in there.
$7 kilos 450.
Just really going to stretch his lead. So he is, as you said, running away with it just now, and still very cool, not nervous, not rushing, doing it at his own pace and just catching a fish every time we turn up with a camera.
This is Steve Jackson on peg 1, who was our joint favourite at the start of the day, a former winner in 2001, but he's some way off the lead. That's a massive fish. He's still hoping that he could bag the biggest fish of the day and take home £2,500 for the prize of that.
Some of the anglers, that's what they'll be doing now. They'll be trying to target a big fish for the £2,500. But they've got a big fish to catch, haven't they, really? You know, 14 pound.
Tommy Pickering's got that right. It is a big fish to catch. And Clive Wright's a big angler to catch. Nearly 43 kilos he's got already. Steve Jackson has made his way to third. On the second half of the leaderboard, it's good to see Lee Kerry has caught a fish or two, but 1999 champion Steve Cook is having a grueler, just 5 kilos. And on the big fish front, there's Clive Wright's monster, still holding on to that £2,500 bonus prize.
It took a bit of might. He had to go to the gym to land this one.
I think the fish had been to the gym.
Yeah. Head first, in it went. A big, brawny Yorkshire fish.
They call those friendly commons sometimes because they just lollop about and they don't give the greatest battle always, do they, some of those big common
just
carp?
Use the weight, don't they?
Yeah.
Just use the weight.
Well, here's our leader. He said it's going to be the longest hour of his life. We've had about 10 minutes into that hour. He's got about 50 minutes left before he finds out whether he is the Fishermania 14 champion. And that is a sizable fish that is making a real event of this as we approach the final 14 minutes or so of Fishermania 14.
He's still trying that, lad. He is. Look at him trying to get in as quick as he can.
It's gone a little quiet for Clive, but we believe that he has got something on the end of the line there.
Look at his helper behind him. It's the first time he's been off the phone, I think. He got to win a 25 grand to pay for his phone bill.
I was going to say, when you're winning £25,000, there's a lot of friends to phone, isn't there?
You find out you've got a lot of friends, I think. That's what it is.
Absolutely. Well, Clive there on peg 16 had a lead at the last weigh-in of 15.5 kilos. An awful lot of weight for Will Raisin to close the gap on.
You see him moving his pole about there, Rob. What he's trying to do is keep the fish under control. Because the fish will want to go in a specific direction, he's trying to disorientate it by moving his pole over its head to alter the angle of pulling it all the time to hopefully keep the fish in one position.
Well, there's 5 minutes to the penultimate weigh-in. Clive Wright taking his time. trying to ensure that he doesn't get his line snagged in the willow tree to his left-hand side, which in some ways has been an advantage because a lot of the fish have headed over there, basking in the, well, I was going to say the sunshine. We normally have sunshine here at Fishermania, but it's been a grey day in Donny.
But he's got no need to rush.
No need at all. He'll be thinking every fish he catches now, this is the fish that's won it.
Counts double. Every fish he catches now virtually counts double.
Just wants to get it in the net. He did reveal earlier on that a few have got away this afternoon as well, so his lead could have been even greater.
That happens, especially when you're fishing down side, it does happen a lot, because you get, when the fish come in the side, you've got bankside vegetation, everything like that, and your feed that comes straight in, you put your bait straight in the middle of it, and you get liners and indications, and sometimes you just lift, not on purpose, you lift too early, and you bump or foul look a fish. It's not intentional, it just happens.
The veins are pumping. Intense concentration. He can take his time. Is that confidence, or is it
That's a cool
case
customer.
of nerves?
That's a cool customer. Other anglers will be rushing down, thinking, I've got to get this fish in. He's not, just taking his time. Well done, mate.
That's another big lump, you know.
Fish. I bet that's not far off.
Absolutely massive.
That's 5 kilos.
Absolutely gigantic. And he's already got the biggest fish of the day as well. And that could be even bigger than his biggest fish. Well, they all came with hope in their heart, but that sound of the penultimate hooter means that, well, at least 14 of the fishermen stand little chance. There's 2 who stand a chance of winning it, 1 who's a runaway leader, 1 who's close by, and they're very close to Jackie Beltrow.
Thank you, Rob. Well, Will Raisin's got a mountain to climb really in this next half an hour, and the last half an hour was slightly successful as he tries to close that gap, which is around, what, 15.5 kilos. Let's do his weigh in. There is something in there, and it's quite a significant fish, actually. So let's have a look. I mean, it is a large cap to close, isn't it? Let's face it, 15.5 kilos. He's got less than half an hour to go. And it's trying to escape. So Will's catch in the last half hour on peg 14, a peg that's won it 3 times. And he's good at catching up, Will. But is this going to be good enough?
4 kilos and 10.
It's going to keep him in the hunt, isn't it? But he's going to have to catch bigger fish than that. He's going to have to catch many more fish than that in the next 30 minutes. Well, let's go and have a look at the leader, the runaway leader at the minute, and that is Clive Wright. He did actually have a quiet half an hour until a few minutes ago. And I think you were right in saying in the studio that he's pretty much got to catch nothing, and Will's got to catch a lot of stuff in the next half an hour. And it was looking like we would see the gap close until this happened. He caught a fish. Let's have a little weigh, Keith. Take that fish out. Let's have a look and see how much this one weighs. Big support for him here. He's really attracted the gallery, along with his 2 daughters who are sitting behind him and his friends. And we've got Alan, who's been sitting very patiently here. Are you nervous, Alan? Are you nervous?
Well, Clive is.
You're much more nervous.
Twice as nervous. He's cool as a cucumber.
He is cool as a cucumber. OK, let's see how much this one weighs. Bob, what do you reckon?
5 kilos.
Let's have a look.
Got it wrong again. 4 kilos, 150.
So there you go. The gap has not been closed. It's still Clive out in the lead, and still Will with a lot to do the next half an hour.
I think it's fair to say that the trophy engraver is sharpening his tools and the accountant is sharpening his pen. Clive Wright looks very likely to be the winner of Fishermania 14. And the rest of the field will, I'm sure, be only too happy to acknowledge defeat to a master angler. They've all put in a great performance on what's been a tough old day. And it looks like there'll be a second check for Mr. Wright as well. That 6.5 kilo whacker doesn't look like being beaten for the big fish prize.
Meanwhile, single-minded on peg 14, 2 pegs along from him. The favourite at the start of the day play, Will Raisin,
this one out?
has got another one on the end of the line. He's hoping it's big, isn't it?
Look, he's pulling it into side so he can lift it straight up and net it. Watch him pull it. Watch him pull it. Pull the fish into side.
Keep the pole low. Keep the fish near the surface. Lift up. In the net.
In the net. Simple as that.
Oh, he needed a big one, didn't he?
That's a bit, you know. I think he knows himself now. He's too far behind. You know. But he won't give in. He won't give in till the end.
It's graffiti time, Tom.
I'm afraid so. For him.
Writing's on the wall.
Less than 15 minutes remain.
The interesting point is catching shallot on worm.
Yeah.
Which is something you don't see a lot.
Well, no, but we've seen it here before. Who did we see catching shallot on worm? There was someone's done it here before. I've watched Mark Lucas do it on matches on various times, and it's a very good technique.
Darren Cox did it with Castor and worm one year, and he comes second. Yeah.
Clive Wright is fishing down by the pipe. First of all, what is the pipe? And secondly, is there any advantage to fishing by the pipe?
It's a drainage pipe more than anything else, and water comes in there, but what he's got, you can just see a layer of sort of scum on the surface of dying algae. It's extra cover for the fish. There's the willow tree, the branches of the willow hanging out. It's a natural safe haven for fish to be. They'll lay under anything, the tiniest thing. When we go to Will's place, to Gold Valley, there's a rope divides the middle of the lake, and the carp line up under the rope. They just like something over the top of them. Protects them from predators.
Well, Keith, you were saying that it's a safe haven for fish. It hasn't been with Clive Wright on the prowl this afternoon. Clive, give us a smile. You're on candid camera.
Clive the assassin.
The assassin. How would you like to be known from this day onwards?
Richer.
Yeah, 25 grand richer.
Are you catching them further away from bank now, Clive?
Sorry, Tom.
Are you catching the fish further away from bank?
No, same spot.
You looked a bit nearer before. You've come right to end at pike now.
I probably just pulled it a little bit closer because I was foul hooking a few fish. I thought about coming halfway up the pipe, but with sort of 10-20 minutes to go, I thought it's not worth it. I'll stick where I am.
You've had a lovely day's fishing, mate, and you caught some cracking fish.
Fantastic. I mean, I've been lucky enough to catch all proper fish. I mean, I've not been bothered at all by small fish.
There's no room there for small fish, that's why.
I think I put too much bait in.
It don't matter, mate. You fished a great match, mate, and you deserved it.
Thank you, Tom. Well to go yet, but...
There's not long to go, buddy.
Is there not?
No, there's not. Take your time.
About 12 minutes you've got now, mate.
How long, sorry?
About 12 minutes, mate.
12 minutes. These fish certainly do put up a fight.
Yorkshire fish, you see, the
Yeah, is that right?
Yeah.
That's a ghosty, that one, by the looks of it.
Looks like it, yeah.
And they always fight that bit harder, don't they, Clive, ghosties?
What is it with them? I really don't know. It's only a small fish as well.
Oh yeah, that's a shame. It's only 2.5 kilos, hard luck.
I caught that one the other day. I've seen this one before.
And we've seen this one before as well. Clive Wright at the top of the leaderboard, 47 kilos plus. Will Raisin has got as close as he's going to with 31.5 kilos, and a great performance by Steve Denmead from Unfancied Peg 2. And the rest of the field can only wonder at the pub bank, which has triumphed again. Peg 16 first, peg 14 second. It's been a nightmare.
Clive Wright, who has won Fishermania at his first attempt, went through the qualifiers at Browning Cudmore in Staffordshire, got a bag of 35 kilos. He's bettered that to that. Last time we heard he'd got 47.14. In 1 minute's time, we'll have the final weigh-in. He's already got the biggest fish of the day. He's got the biggest complete bag of the day. He's actually lost a few fish as well. The ones that got away could have been even better for him. He's going to have some wonderful tales to tell the grandchildren. The daughters are already here. They've insisted on 10% of his winnings, which will be confirmed very shortly. And he's got another one, just for good measure. It's just a question whether he can get this in the bag before they do the final weigh-in.
And it sent him a small one so he could get it in time. How about that?
Perfect size.
Yeah.
Well done, mate.
fished a very cool, calm, controlled match.
He's fished a great match. The most important thing for me is he's fed it right. He's fed it with a big pot and he's got fish into his peg. And he's just put his ring in the middle of that and he's just fished it well. He's fished best match in my opinion.
And he's let it mature. He let that peg build up before he attacked it.
Yeah, and he fished tactically, he's fished a right good match.
He's got that in, you know, with 10 seconds
10
to spare.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4.
He's trying to put his bait on.
2, 1.
No, he's not.
The voice in the background there of our master of ceremonies, McDonald.
He's taking the watch off.
Can I just tell you, you've won £25,000 for winning Fishermania. You've also got the biggest fish in the bag. You owe a lot of money out of. You've promised a lot of this away, haven't you? Your daughter taking 10%. Who else is taking some of this winnings?
10%, and I'm going to buy my mate a new pole.
Oh, excellent. Here he goes.
And this is the final weigh-in down there on the scales.
4,780. 4 kilos, 780.
4 kilos, 780, and Keith Arthur alongside me has done the maths. That's a total weight on the day, 5 hours of fishing, of 51 kilos, 0.92.
And there it is, Clive Wright, the quiet man from Wolverhampton, has triumphed. Nearly 52 kilos of top quality carp on a cracking day of action, topped out by a 6.5 kilo bonus fish.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, to receive the coveted trophy, the champagne, the £25,000 in prize money, and most important of all, the title of PartyPoker.com Fishermania 14 champion, ladies and gentlemen, Clive Wright!